As the world changes, we become more and more aware of the nature of our delicate environment. The ancient ones of the waters washing up on shore, dead from sonar waves and tests being administered in the ocean by the naval forces. Black goo being discovered pouring out of the old oak growth trees in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. All of the locations of damage are predominantly the original continent of Mu. The ancient ones have been keeping the balance for hundreds of thousands of years. Now, at this time, the Dark Lords have been locked out of the Garden of Eden and cannot get back in. Their next move has been to affect the ancient ones that hold the balance of this planet. Since they no longer have access to Eden, they must find another way to control the Matrix. The ancient ones, despite all the manipulation by the factions of the Dark Lords, have managed to keep the balance of nature intact. Now, because there are some human ancient ones that are intrinsically connected to this planet and to the ancient ones of nature that support the humans with this process, the powers that were supporters of the Temple of Set have decided to obey the orders of the Dark Lord factions and go beyond their better judgment and follow orders to harm and weaken the ancient lineages of this planet to help the Dark Lord's agenda. The problem for the Dark Lords is the veil has been completely lifted off now. During the process of the contracts being nullified between the Dark Lords and the Mother Goddesses of Eden, the veil was lifted, and we are now in brand new territory. Everything will be different from this point. Not since 450,000 years ago have we experienced the veil absent from this earth plane. This is all new territory, and we need to express our truest nature to come into true resonance with what is happening now on Gaia. She is no longer under the control of the Dark Lords and has been returned to her rightful balance. Things will be topsy-turvy for a while the balance is restoring itself. It has made it possible for the benevolent dragons to be released and for them to return to their rightful position upon this earth. Also, the Fae kingdoms in most places have been restored to a natural state of revealing themselves when they feel safe to do so. The physical third dimension is still too dense for them to be seen with the naked eye. But if you have the third sight, you will be able to see what is happening and be able to communicate in a sentient way with this particular collective. I had full court this morning, along with the unicorns present for my walk, and I felt honored to be in their presence. I cried like a baby. This is the third time this month that they have appeared to me. After I got a certain resonance, they came out and decided to come out from their retreat. They appeared all around me. My puppy could see them all. He distinctly looked at them all around us. It was spectacular. He was not scared, but rather fascinated. One of the Fae came up to him and pet him on the forehead, and he let her. I believe it was the Fae Queen's daughter. She looked about 19 years old in Earth years, obviously much more ancient. My eyes were open and closed intermittently at that point, although I could see what was happening. I was singing to the forest, rather toning. During my visit to this magical forest this morning, I sat in council with the Ancient Ones, including the whales, dolphins, and sea dragons, the benevolent dragons of Earth, the woolly mammoths, the dinosaurs, and the ancient tree kingdoms. I stated that I was here to be of service and asked how I could be of maximum service and what was the next step that needed to happen. They explained that due to the manipulation of the dark factions, the vibratory elevation of this planet has been thwarted, and it has upset the natural balance that has been held by the ancients for so long. They asked that we, the ancient ones in human form, activate the living crystals of Atlantis that exist around the planet. They showed me the locations of the living crystals and outpost shards that have been planted across the earth. This is quite an endeavor and will require we all activate them at the same time. So there is no chance that the dark factions can stop us. This means personally finding ancient ones in each location and to activate simultaneously. Quite a task, but doable. This particular outpost crystal in this area goes along with the story of hundreds of years ago when there was a council of elders around the 14th century. There was a group of natives that sat in council and were the keepers of knowledge. It had been passed down through the ages that this was the location of a shard of the blue crystal of knowledge of Atlantis. They came here to do this, to this hill, to do vision quests, and to sit with the crystal for 3 to 7 days at a time. They would trek for a long journey from all over to come to this land, and to hold space for this wisdom to be received. This is an old-growth oak forest. There have been oak trees on this land for thousands of years. The balance of this land and the elemental kingdom was upset at that point by a young man who felt entitled to see the Fey kingdom and could not. He had insisted that he came on the vision quest with the chief elders, and they agreed to teach him a lesson. When he could not see the Fey, he cast a curse across the land and on the Fey kingdom, not realizing his strength. He then demanded to have the chief council undo his curse, and they said, "What is done is done. You have sealed your fate, young one." This is his story. Jumping back in the timeline to 1400 AD, a time where on this particular continent it was filled with native tribesmen of all races. Fancy that. During that time, there formed a council of elders called the Keepers of Knowledge. They created their lodge directly on top of this generator shard of blue crystal, about 13 feet due southeast of the actual crystal itself, buried deep underground, but close enough to the Earth's surface to be felt. It may have been above ground 13,000 years ago. This particular shard stands 40 feet tall and is 12 feet in diameter. The crystal was holding this area in full resonance and connected to the living blue crystal of knowledge, located approximately 36 miles from this outpost. It may even be that this crystal, this blue crystal, is one individual point off the main living blue crystal of knowledge. So at that time, during that period, where time didn't actually exist for these natives, these men would come and travel from afar to retreat into Vision Quest here for 3 to 7 days, whatever it took to receive the transmission being offered by the blue crystal of knowledge. This being the highest point in the region, they could look off into the Appalachian Blue Ridge mountain chain and have visions of the world to come, and to hold the sacred knowledge of this crystal. They had awareness of the elemental kingdom that resided here on this land and in this forest, but they did not feel it was their place to bridge the two worlds. They allowed for the universal law of non-interference to be present within their interactions and coexisting nature. One of the council members, by marriage, was the son-in-law of the main elder chief that held the council. The main elder invited this man into the circle of the council of elders on this particular occasion for a vision quest. After much deliberation and against his better judgment, as this man was quite young and still had many qualities that revealed his level of maturation, the young man manipulated his way into the council of elders, and the main chief agreed to teach him a lesson. The key here is that the council and the elemental kingdom had been forming a bond over many years and had created a mutual understanding. When this young man entered the picture, he forced his opinion regarding the elementals and demanded that they reveal themselves to him to prove their existence. The council sat quietly until the chief spoke. The entire council could see the elementals with their inner eye and had no demands of these creatures and fae folk. They left them alone to reveal themselves when they felt it was deemed a proper occasion. Something in this young man was restless and could not stand the fact that everyone else could see and he could not. The main elder chief explained as he finally spoke. "It takes a trained and patient eye to see, young one." The young man did not like this at all, and he cast a curse out in that moment, not knowing the level of power he was wielding, and cursed the entire clan of fae and mystical creatures to never be seen again. Obviously, he was quite hurt in that moment, as he felt a deep longing to see his kin again. But the curse he cast caused severe ripples across the land of the mystical creatures, causing them to retreat. Due to the universal law of non-interference, the Council of Elders had no choice but to let him live out his karmic retribution for his actions. He demanded they undo the curse he had cast, but they refused and said, "What is done cannot be undone. You have sealed your fate, young one." He raged and cursed the entire council, attempting to strip them of their power and the knowledge they kept, but it did not work. The council was too strong together, and he had sealed his own fate. He was left to find his way back home to the tribe on foot, and cast out of the tribe upon his return. His fate has followed him all of his days. He still carries the deep sadness of his choices and the fact that he cannot be his natural mystical being. Over the years, through being cast out, his heart began to harden, and he pledged his allegiance to the Dark Lords, raping and pillaging women, killing children for sustenance, essentially a beast. He now exists as a woman today in modern time, and has returned to this exact location to discover his fate awaits him, as it always has. Maybe this time he will truly step into his power by coming into the truth of his actions and righting the curse he cast so many years ago. Going back even further, approximately 13,000 years ago, during the time of Atlantis, before the fall, this was an outpost. One of the temples resided in this area, the Temple of Wisdom, containing the blue crystal of knowledge. The blue crystal of knowledge was the first to be saved and stored, just prior to the fall of Atlantis. The blue crystal of knowledge was the first to be taken care of by the Atla Ra priesthood to protect the wisdom of Atlantis, Mu, and Gaia, Tiamat, Terra, Earth, stored deep within the crystal. One of the priestesses named Antara, a 10,000-year-old androgynous being who oversaw all 13 temples and stood about 12 feet tall with a golden-hued skin, was assigned the task of planting a generator point of the living blue crystal in another location just 36 miles off the main crystal. A grid was formed in this region to protect the blue crystal of knowledge. A triangular formation was created around this crystal. Not only that, but the ley lines of the planet also coincided with this formation. This area has recently been termed the keyhole. 3 separate ley lines from east coincide here in this region. In modern time, this location has many attributes, and if there was to be any extinction level event, this area would be protected. In the case of a nuclear fallout, 5 underground cities have been built by the government to protect the elite and to house them for up to 5 years. Also, they have created the backup capital of the United States here. They are privy to all of this information on some level and have prepared accordingly. In the middle of 2014, when a developer decided to build on the land of the Blue Crystal Point, the balance of this land was upset tremendously. They bulldozed this entire area and decided to take several acres of old-growth oak forest that protected the top of this hill from the energies of the city of Asheville. During the build of these 5 homes, the developer, acting out of alignment with this balance, did whatever he deemed necessary for his purpose here. During that process, he upset the entire balance of this magical location, and the crystal retreated inward. Hence, going inward, and if looking at it from the perspective of what's happening at this time on this planet, it could be viewed as the minions of the Dark Lords doing their part to make sure they have dominance over this realm. So during the last month, I have been taking many walks into this magical forest that rests behind the Om Sanctuary. I have had the dragon of this hill whip her tail around for the past year and call out to me and ask for assistance to be released, to join her clan in the assistance of the sacred womb grid around the equatorial region of the earth. I was finally able to get back into the forest behind the sanctuary as they cleared the path. Firstly, I had no idea I was so intrinsically connected to this planet and this particular region until I spoke to the Fae Queen. I have felt since I acquired this house effortlessly that this is my power spot. I mean, I had an inkling, but really I did not know or get the whole picture. Now I'm beginning to understand just how ancient I am in relation to what is happening on this level and what I am here to do. I have known for some time that I am a source being, a force-born monadic spirit. Those of us from this particular group have made their way back to Earth at this time to help assist with this transition. There were 144,000 original monads created from Source that went on to create other races and soul essences. The original Rishi collectives were the Emerald Order, the Gold Order, and the Violet Order. These original collectives created the original Emerald Covenant, which is now known as the Cosmic Sovereign Law of One. We, the Ancient Ones, live according to this covenant and cannot live any other way. When we, that are of this collective, fall astray, we are quickly brought back to this way of being, as we cannot live out of right relations with this covenant. If any of us have Dark Lords in our DNA, it can make this process even more difficult. We have come here on this Sophionic mission to clear the Dark Lords from the DNA of humanity, among other things. These Ancient Ones exist in many forms, in the whales, dolphins, ancient benevolent dragons, the old-growth redwoods, ferns, oaks, and many other tree kingdoms. The crystal and mineral kingdoms have been holding the frequency as well on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. They have had to do this job because humanity and those ancient ones that have incarnated as humans have lost their way or have been controlled into thinking that they are not as powerful as they truly are. The type of power that legends are made of and have had their DNA disconnected from its original state, the original divine blueprint, and has lied dormant for hundreds of thousands of years, until now. Now is the time to return to the garden. Everything is different now. We can never go back to the misaligned control of the dark matrix. It is not possible. We have already won. This galactic battle has been going on since the beginning of sentient humans on this particular planet. They will do everything in their power to continue to exercise control, but the veil is officially lifted, and every living being on this planet and in all matrices connected to this earth plane, inside or out, will begin to see the truth and integrate the wisdom of the ancients. There is no turning back. We must all do our part to come into right relations with ourselves and all of our relations, including all kingdoms. These kingdoms consist of the following: the celestial realms, the galactic brothers and sisters, the cosmic high councils, the angelic realms, the Davic realms on and off planet, the elemental kingdoms, the crystal and mineral kingdoms, the tree kingdoms, the plant kingdoms, the insect kingdoms, the flora and fauna kingdoms, the flower kingdoms, the winged ones, the animal kingdoms, the human kingdoms, the astral realms. There are so many layers to our existence, and at this time especially, it is imperative that we allow for all of these realms to come together in harmony. And when something is not in right relations, we must address it directly for the benefit of all beings. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be free from suffering. And so it is. Thank you for listening to my podcast. This is Sarah Lee Shekina Sophia. I was reading from the Living Crystals of Atlantis, my captain's log, from December 10th, 2015. Blessings, beloveds.